Oh, well, thank you for bringing it over here. Whew. Hello, friends. Happy Pride Month. It is officially June. And I got my pup here. Hold, please. Phew. It's officially June, which means it is Pride Month. So happy Pride Month to all the guys, gals, and non-binary pals. We're just gonna keep throwing a ball throughout this video. So I thought I'd do a story time in this video to sit down with you guys and talk about my coming out experience, because I feel like maybe some of you guys don't know it, or maybe some of you guys do but don't know everything. I just thought I'd sit down and actually talk about it now that it's almost been 2 years since I came out. So I originally came out as bisexual, but now I consider myself gay after the experiences that I've had so far and just kind of discovering more about myself. You ready? So let's start with, I've known this about myself since I was probably about 8 years old. I mean, very, very young. I kind of knew I was attracted to the same sex and just, didn't know what to do about it. Now, I grew up in the Latter-day Saints church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon church, and so, growing up, it wasn't talked about a lot, to be honest. I didn't really know the term gay until I was probably about 12 or 13. Didn't know its meaning or that it even existed, really. So for the very early years, I was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what this feeling is. But then as I grew up and gone to high school and stuff, I learned more about it and it was becoming more talked about, but still very, it was wrong. We don't associate with that type of thing. I remember being asked a lot in high school, what do you think of them or whatever? And it was always the cliche thing to say of well, I don't care what they do as long as they don't bring me into it, as long as they don't pull me into it, as long as they don't involve me in it, type of thing. And that's just that was the routine answer a lot of people would give. And I got into my junior year of high school. I went into heart failure a second time. If you guys didn't know that's a whole nother story with my heart condition. I was born with half a heart, and so high school was the second time I had gone into heart failure. Now, I was always told to believe that I would only make it probably 18 years old max, so I believed this was my time. I'm done, peace out. It was good while it lasted. I really did believe I was going to die, and I have a few letters, some goodbye letters from family and friends who also believed it was my time. Now, in this time, I met a boy. We had math class together, and I can honestly say now he is truly my first love. He's the first person I ever fell in love with. But we had math class together, and we got assigned an assignment together, and so that gave us an opportunity to talk and get to know each other. And then from there, without going into all the details with that, we grew closer and closer and closer. And then when I was diagnosed with a heart failure, we got even more closer, and I got so close with his family. I honestly was over at his house 24/7. His family was amazing. I love his family still to death. They're great people and so loving, and I miss them. But it was something I was battling the whole time. I knew what my feelings were for him, but I tried to tell myself it was something completely different. I tried to tell myself it was this brotherly love, that we were these spiritual brothers and whatever, but deep down, I knew truly, I was I love this boy and I want him to be mine. Eventually, through everything, we drifted apart. We honestly started drifting apart before high school even ended, and that was just kind of the end of our story. Unfortunately, never got a full closure on it, and I will say I really lingered on him for many, many years thereafter, but I couldn't talk about it really to anyone. I mean, I talked about it, but not in the true way that I wanted to talk about it. And within that time, I graduated high school and I started working with this girl, and I really liked her. And we became friends, and we were friends for a few years, and then eventually we started dating. We started dating in 2018, and I can say to this day, she was my absolute best friend. I love her to death, but I knew it wasn't that kind of love. So we dated for 3 years, and then about midway through 2021, I moved out for the first time. I moved in with Angie and Kelson. We were renting a house, and it was the first time I was living away from my parents and living on my own in a way. And that kind of stirred up a lot of things. I started to kind of wake up, if you will, and started to realize a lot of like, wow, I'm still here. I never thought I was ever going to have this chance to be here today, because again, my max was always 18 years. I was always told 18 years is all you're going to get, kid. I am currently 25 years old, for those that don't know. So I moved out in the middle of 2021. It was May. And, you know, we went a few months. And within those months, the few months next, I started talking to a boy online and started to develop these feelings again that I really hadn't had for a boy since the one from high school. And within this time, I'm sure my girlfriend at the time started to notice and whatever. And then one morning, I was at work early morning, and one of my managers asked me a simple question. Ashton, what do you want? And I had absolutely no answer for her. I didn't know where my life was going, what I wanted anymore, who I was, and what I ultimately wanted to achieve in life. And so that same day, I asked my girlfriend to come over. Hey, it's a lizard. It's fine. Leave it. Scout. The lizard is nice, okay? You're more mean than it, I promise. So we went out on a little drive, and I basically told her everything. She was the first person I came out to, and it was a really good conversation. I mean, sure, there were tears, but there was no yelling, no bickering, nothing. I was just being completely honest with her in that I'm trying to figure out who I was, and I don't know who I am anymore. So we broke up that day, and I kind of... Oh, there's flies, sorry. I kind of, again, started to wake up and be like, it's my chance to actually write the story I want to write instead of living the story people want me to live. And so it took some time, but I slowly came out to friends one by one. And then I decided I couldn't get myself to come out to my parents. So I wrote them a letter, and I had one of my friends deliver the letter for me. And that same day, me and one of my longtime friends, Jenny, hello Jenny if you do watch this, we actually dated at one point too, but her and I basically got in a car and went to California. I handed over the letter to my friend, she handed it to my family, and I said, peace out for the weekend. So I knew they had read it because before we headed out, my parents were also heading out somewhere out of town. And so I dropped by the house real quick, and I saw that the letter was open, and it was sitting in their room open. So I knew they had read it. And then we left after that. Now, during all this time, I'm still talking to that boy that I met online. We are talking a ton, 24/7, like on the phone, on FaceTime, and all this. And I thought I was finally free at this moment, but now where I'm at, I'm realizing that was the beginning of becoming free, but I was not free at all yet then. So yeah, we went to California. We had a little trip. I got a guitar that I still got to learn how to play. Whoops. And came back, and a lot of stuff kind of started to go into a tornado, a whirlwind. And I really wanted to meet this boy in person because I wanted to know, are my feelings true for you? Or is it just you're a pretty face on a screen? But it wasn't happening because COVID was still a thing, and the family was still being cautious. And so we couldn't make arrangements to get together. A lot was happening in my life. I was starting to break down again. You know, my family one by one were calling me and telling me what they thought of me coming out. I had, my siblings tell me, like, I don't support it, but I still love you. They were telling me basically not to do this or that in front of their kids, that they want to be the ones to teach them about it. So if I ever have a boyfriend, he's my friend. So I was not getting the support that I really needed, especially in the beginning. And I started having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I was breaking down. I am one that struggles with self-harm. And so I was going back into that cycle. That stemmed from high school, actually, when I was in heart failure. So that kind of resurfaced for me. Yeah, I was getting to a very, very bad place, and I was yelling at this boy. I mean, I was getting very comfortable with this boy very fast, and so I was kind of confiding in him of all my feelings and just like being super vulnerable to him. But it was quite intense. It was quite a lot, quite intense all at once at first. So in the midst of all this, I got to meet Frank Welker. I went to an event up in Salt Lake City called Fan X. It's kind of like their version of Comic-Con, and I feel really bad because that was such an amazing experience, but unfortunately it was at one of the hardest times in my life. So yeah, time went on, and this boy and I kind of went on and off just because of a lot of things. I was going through stuff and whatever, and then eventually we started to get really, really close again. It's kind of like we took steps back and then we kind of rushed back in. And then my grandma on my mom's side passed away, and it was one of those, I was out on a trip, on a annual trip that I take with my friends Angie and Kelson. We go to Park City once a year. We were out there, and my dad called and was like, hey, grandma has passed, just wanted to let you know. And that was like, oh shoot, like, I just came out and now the family has to process this. So then we had the funeral, and I'm not gonna lie, the boy and I did stuff while the funeral was going on, like not the actual funeral ceremony, but during the time, and I'm a little annoyed by it now. Looking back on it, I'm like, I should have not, but it is what it is. And then not long after, my grandpa died on my dad's side. So it had maybe barely been a month, if that. To add into all that, I had my annual heart appointment, but I hadn't had one since 2020 before COVID started. So this was a big appointment, and they wanted to do all kinds of testing. We had 2 MRIs done. We had a stress test, all of this. We had that appointment right in the middle of both funerals, both deaths. And the first part of that appointment, my friend Angie actually came with me, not my parents. My parents came with the second part, and it was just a lot. It was a lot. And then we had the funeral for my grandpa, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a little rough, a little awkward, because it's like at this point it was about December, and I originally came out about August, September, between that time. And so it's like it had been a few months and people had seen, it had been some time for people to digest it. The family gathered the day after the funeral. We just kind of had like one more hoorah, if you will. And my dad did something that I don't know, it kind of hit me a little bit hard. He kind of asked for everybody, all the boys in the family that aren't married and whatever, to come up. And he was basically like, and these are the ones that are going to carry on the Hardy name and everything. And it hit a little bit because I was like, oh, like you're holding out hope that I'll marry a girl? I don't know. It was kind of weird for me. I should also say, during all this too, I started therapy. I was like, I had a handful of people say, maybe you should get in therapy. And I said, for the longest time, maybe I shouldn't. And then I was like, maybe I should. Love therapy. Everybody should do it. I'm still in therapy. But I started therapy within all this. So that was honestly great to be able to start that. I think it helped a lot, and yet at the same time, it was still so hard at the time. So then not long after, the week of Christmas, me and the boy finally made plans to meet up together. It was the week of Christmas. I drove out to him. I drove 10 hours to where he lives, and we stayed in an Airbnb for roughly a week, and we spent Christmas together. And it was really hard because I actually never got like any calls, really any messages from my family, for Christmas, and I felt very alone. I was with this stranger, honestly, And I was just like very alone for Christmas that year. Eventually, we decided he was gonna come home for me for a bit. We thought for maybe like a month or two, and it ended up being quite a bit longer. He came home with me. We spent New Year's back here. He met my friends I lived with and started to meet my family, but it was not going well. The family introduction was chaotic, and then my parents tried to have like a dinner with us, and it just was awkward, and I felt like my dad made some jokes that just were not very timely, and it just didn't feel right. And all during this time, my mom and I were trying to talk about it all, but I kept feeling like my mom was going back and forth of being supportive, but then also, well, maybe this. I remember one of the first things she told me when I came out was that God knows you can get through this. And since she has taken that back, she has changed that, but you know, it hit quite a bit, and I think a lot of processing and accepting was going on for my mom, and she kept going back and forth for a while, and she still does a little bit today, but not as bad. I can definitely see the progress now, but it was a bit rough, you know. It was difficult because I didn't really have hardly any support, I felt like, you know, and any of my support I did have like was so far away. They lived far away, you know. My friends that were supportive were far away. I mean, Angie and Kelson were super supportive, but a lot of us were going through our own stuff. It was a whirlwind, as I said. So this boy ended up staying with me until about the end of April. So from the end of December to the end of April is how long he ended up staying with us, and it was quite a bit longer than we thought. And originally, we were planning to find our own place together. Now, it was a bit rough because I felt like there was a lot of things I was teaching him. You know, I was kind of helping him with like a first full-time job. I was teaching him, you know, like what you do with the paychecks. I was, you know, we were learning like getting groceries and living situation, you know, living with other people, paying bills, you know, helping to contribute in rent and different things. There was just a lot I felt like I was teaching him that I almost felt like I had to mature in a lot of ways really fast suddenly, and it was really, really hard for me. And all during this time I felt like I was taking care of everybody else. I felt like I was taking care of my parents, of my family, of, you know, my friends, just like, oh, it's okay, oh, it's gonna be okay, oh, I promise. But all through this I was still breaking down. I was just not happy. We had an unfortunate circumstance with our Easter with my family too, just because of some family members not being supportive and struggling, you know, with it. So yeah, we were really aiming to move in together to a place of our own, and we had a place lined up, but then like honestly like 2 weeks before, I just kind of was like, no, enough is enough, you know. I was like, no more, I can't do this anymore. I broke up with him, and we basically said it's time for us to go back home. I was like, I need to go back home because when I originally moved out, the car that I had broke down like 4 times in a month. I lost all my savings. I had no money. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to sustain for both of us. I was like, and I have half a heart. I can't work full time like a normal person. So yeah, he went back. His parents came and picked him up, and I moved back home, and it was really hard because it had only been like a year that I moved out, and I already was moving back home, which is where I'm at today. And we tried to stay friends, but it was hard because we were still talking every day, so those feelings never really went away. And so not long after, probably only a month later, we got back together. Dating wise, we never got back in person together. I think I was relying on the comfort of it, of just like having someone, than actually enjoying it. And I mean, probably only like a month and a half later, there was just a lot that went down, and I finally kind of drilled myself down so bad that I was just like, I'm right back where I was like a year ago. I wasn't happy with who I was, where I was going, and what was happening in my life. and I was like, I can't do this again. So I ended up breaking up with him again and breaking contact that time. And honestly, from that point on, from about the middle of 2022 is when I finally started taking back my life and loving myself. You know, there was a lot of discussions I had to have with my mom since I was back home, you know, and at the time my dad was working in Vegas, so he wasn't home all the time. But I kind of had to stand my ground, and she did too, in ways of being like, this is who I am, and if you're gonna love me, then this is how you can love me. I've taken all these months to enjoy myself. You know, I was like, okay, it's time to love myself again. It's time to enjoy life again. So I've been making sure to do spontaneous things and go on adventures, make memories with myself or other friends. I've been making a lot of new friends. I've made a handful of new friends, which has been amazing, and I love them. I mean, I love all my friends. And some members of my family have made a lot of progress in coming around to me being out and who I am. And again, I've kind of changed to I'm gay. You know, I consider myself gay now rather than bisexual. And it's been a whole experience. It's been a crazy ride the last like 2 years, but I'm finally getting to a place where I'm happy with who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am and comfortable with where things are at. And yeah, so that's kind of my story. Again, there's a lot of details, you know, that I kind of didn't include just for personal reasons. But I did make like a coming out video, if you guys didn't see that, originally back in 2021. So that was actually a funny story too, to add on to that. The day that I made that video, actually, I was originally going to work early morning, and my manager was like, crap, I slept in. She was like, you know what, you're fine, go enjoy your day. And so I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna go enjoy it. And so I went to different spots, watched the sunrise, and filmed things, and then eventually put the video together. So that's kind of how that video came together. It was a little bit of a spontaneous thing, but I'm so appreciative of the support that I do have. You know, I'm still looking for more support, because in ways I feel like I don't have all of what I need, but do we ever, you know? I'm so thankful for all of you guys that have supported me and have been there for me with all of this. You know, I'm so thankful. Like, as hard as it was for me to come out, I know it could have been way, way worse. You know, my family could have said I could not come back home. You know, I could be homeless right now. No one loving me, you know, so I'm very, very thankful for the people that are still in my life and have accepted me and are loving me and supporting me, and you know, I'm so thankful for them. So yeah, anyways guys, that's kind of a sit down story time with me of my coming out story. In a way, it's still going. Does anyone's coming out story ever end? Probably not, but I thought I would share with you guys for the start of Pride Month, because I feel like I haven't sat down and told you guys the whole story. If you guys have any questions about it, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I would love to answer them in future videos, because again, there's a lot of details I've kind of kept out, and if you guys are curious about certain things, I would be happy to jump into it. But that's just kind of like the basis of my coming out story. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting and accepting me. Happy Pride, everybody. You guys are all loved. Here, let me tell you, I love you all. I accept you all. You guys are all welcome. You're valid. You're important. And you guys are seriously the reason, obviously, that I make content, because I get to connect with all of you, and I love that. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate all y'all listening, tuning in, and having a chat with me. I will catch you in the next one. So until the next one, I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.